Hey guys, what is up? Week 2 DFS Core Plays both on DraftKings and FanDuel. Coming at you quick and just in time for Sunday's main slate DFS contest. Welcome back to the channel and thank you again for tuning in to No Huddle Fantasy Sports. I'm coming at you with a DFS-centered video focusing on Sunday's main slate action both on DraftKings and FanDuel. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the quarterback position. The first guy I'm listed here is Jared Goff for the Los Angeles Rams. He takes on the New Orleans Saints at home, a place where he plays much better. Goff has pretty drastic road versus home splits, so it's always a good thing to take or consider Goff at home. It's a high potential game in terms of scoring. The current line, I believe, is around 52 in terms of an over-under. There's a small spread, I believe 2.5 points in favor of the Rams. And overall, the Rams are projected to score 27 or more points. All good things here. His salary, $5,900 on DraftKings, $7,600 on FanDuel, still is low enough that I believe is considered a value at the position. He has the potential to put up top 5 numbers, and at that salary can offer major upside. On top of all of that, the potential to stack him with a number of players is essentially unlimited. And finally, I mentioned he's playing the Saints. The Saints, historically, and including this year and last year, are a top 5 defensive matchup for the quarterback position, meaning it's a great matchup for Jared Goff in a high-tempo, high-scoring game where he has all the weapons in the world to succeed. I like Jared Goff this week. Next up, I listed Derek Carr here for Oakland. Surprisingly, Carr came out week 1 and had a really good game. He and the Oakland Raiders travel to Kansas City this week. This game hopefully won't be a blowout, but regardless should be an up-tempo, fast type of game flow. Things we like when targeting quarterbacks in DFS. Projected total right now is even above the Rams-New Orleans game at 53.5. Although Oakland is right now a pretty steep underdog, the ball should remain in the air. They should be chasing the entire game. Kansas City's defense in general is not very good. Jacksonville, even week 1, with both Foles and their backup quarterback, put up pretty decent number. I think combined 350, 375 yards and a couple of scores through the air. If they were able to do that with Jacksonville, I have no reason to believe Derek Carr can't do that with Oakland and the weapons he has. Moving on to the running back position. There's a number of guys I really like at this position this week. Alvin Kamara, New Orleans. He's an elite back. He's pretty much matchup proof. However, there's a couple of things I'm really liking about him this week. Number 1, they're traveling to the Rams. I'm not really high on New Orleans' passing game this week. Drew Brees in general isn't that great on the road. They should have to rely on Kamara in their run game a little bit more. And if we look back to week 1, Kamara got 70% usage at the running back position. I already talked about the 52-point over and under. It's a close spread. Points have to come from somewhere. If I'm not believing in the passing game of New Orleans, I have to believe in Alvin Kamara. You're paying for him this week, but I really believe it's worth it. Sonny Michel, New England. A lot of people are on Tom Brady this week, the passing game. I'm hoping that keeps Michel's ownership a bit lower than it should be. And by taking him versus Tom Brady, I think you can get a little bit contrarian here and play a bit counter to all those people that are playing the passing game of New England. New England this week is a massive favorite, traveling to Miami against just a putrid Miami team. We saw them get destroyed by Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Ingram. Basically anyone on the Baltimore team last did work versus them. Little reason to believe New England doesn't just dominate the game. When that happens, Sonny Michel, if you look back to 2018, games that they were big favorites and they had blowout wins, he got the heavy workload. You're talking 20 touches, 25 touches a game, huge yardage on the ground, heavy red zone usage. I love Sonny Michel this week for New England. Next up, I have Chris Thompson for Washington. Really, this comes down to a couple of things. It is a bit of a risk here, but he is offering massive value at the position. Washington's main running back, their workhorse, the guy they wanted to be the feature back, got hurt last week. He's out for a while. In came Chris Thompson. He had 10 targets for the Washington Redskins. They did bring in, or I guess reactivate, Adrian Peterson, but Adrian Peterson is not a guy that's known to do work in the passing game. I believe AP obviously plays. He gets a lot of the early work, but anything left over goes to Chris Thompson. In a game in which I believe they will be trailing, Thompson has that potential. He could get, again, 10 or more targets. On top of all of this, his salary is incredible. If you're playing on DraftKings, $3,900, it's almost bare minimum for a running back that could get heavy usage, both in the passing game and a little bit on the ground. And finally, it wouldn't be a running back core play without mentioning Austin Eckler for the Los Angeles Chargers. If there was any question revolving around Eckler, if Jackson was going to get any work, it all ended week 1. Eckler came out of the gates like a monster. I think he had 3 total touchdowns, 2 through the air, 1 on the ground. Got 75% of the workload in terms of running backs for the Chargers. Was a massive weapon coming out of the backfield in the passing game. I love Eckler again this week. There's little reason to believe he can't keep it up. And on top of that, the Chargers are suffering a number of injuries at both the tight end and wide receiver positions. Eckler could potentially get actually more targets, more usage in the passing game going forward. Moving on and picking up the pace here with wide receivers, I think week 2 presents us a great opportunity to not spend up at the position. Guys like Julio Jones, Mike Evans, and Odell Beckham aren't even on the main slate, and other guys like Adams, Thomas, and even Hopkins are in bad matchups. So we can spend down here, save a little bit of money. Keenan Allen is my favorite guy by far. He has always offered a nice floor, especially in PPR, because of his volume and the number of targets he gets. But this week, it's a little bit different. Hunter Henry is out for the foreseeable future. Williams is still questionable. I think this week we could see an actual increased number of targets going his way against a team that just got demolished by vintage Larry Fitzgerald. I like Keenan Allen. Sammy Watkins, a name here that's probably going to be one of the higher-owned players in DFS on main slates. A guy that, was a bust for many, many years in fantasy, but playing for Kansas City, seeing Tyreek Hill go down, his volume went up. He is playing in an offense that's up-tempo, great quarterback, high scoring, just a great opportunity, a great spot for Sammy Watkins. Robert Woods for the Rams. I talked about Jared Goff. We need guys to pair him with. Robert Woods saw the most targets week 1 for the Rams at 13. I mentioned Goff and how great of a matchup he has against the Saints. The Saints can't hardly guard anyone on defense in terms of passing. I like Robert Woods with that high volume. And finally, another guy here that probably will see a really high amount of ownership this week in DFS is Tyrell Williams for Oakland, especially on DraftKings. Only $4,400. You almost have to play him. He's a deep threat for Oakland. I like Derek Carr. This is the guy you want to pair him with in terms of wide receivers. Kansas City has been pretty weak over the years in general on defense, but especially versus guys that can run deep on them. Tyrell Williams fits that bill and should see plenty of opportunity in a high-scoring game in which Oakland chases pretty much the entire time. Tight ends, listing only 2 guys here, Evan Ingram and Darren Waller for Oakland. Evan Ingram last week got a massive 14 targets against Dallas. And surprisingly, that target share might actually go up in week 2, mostly because the second highest targeted receiver on the Giants team was Shepard, who is currently in concussion protocol. Buffalo's secondary also is pretty above average versus wide receivers, meaning the wide receivers for the Giants probably will have a more difficult time than most trying to get open. The ball should flood more towards Ingram this week. The other guy here, Darren Waller, you can pair him with your Williams, Derek Carr stack. He is an unbelievable value at $3,300 on DraftKings. I'm telling you right now, these Oakland players are just too underpriced. It's the number one reason I'm picking most of these players. They showed opportunity, they had volume, usage. All these guys are in great spots versus Kansas City, a weak defense in a high-scoring game. This is probably the last opportunity you will have to pick up someone like Waller at $3,300 on DraftKings. But Waller in general had a great week 1, kind of burst onto the scene as the guy no one knew of. He, what seems to be, inherited most of the Antonio Brown usage, and if anything, split that with Williams. He was a focal point of the Oakland offense last week, led Oakland overall in targets with 8, and in general snap count had 58, which was more than even any receiver. And as I mentioned, you're in an up-tempo game. I like Carr, I like Williams, high scoring. They're going to have to pass to keep up. Expect Waller at $3,300. You don't even need much, but he could have a great, great game again in week 2. And so that wraps up my main core plays for week 2. There are a couple other guys I wanted to just highlight here for other considerations. Namely Ben Roethlisberger for Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's passing game, including Ben's, gets on track here in Week 2 against the Seahawks. Matt Breida, he's entering as now a feature back, the only back in San Francisco with Coleman going down, so a lot more usage there. Gio Bernard, if Mixon doesn't play, offers major value. Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, both to be paired with Jared Goff. Brandon Cooks playing a little bit of a narrative game, although he is facing probably Lattimore. Christian Kirk had 12 targets last week, although he didn't do much with him. We like to see that volume. That will lead to production at some point. And finally, George Kittle, tight end. Talked about him a little bit last week. Really the best receiver for San Francisco. Had a couple of scores called back on penalty last week. If he had those, he would have had a monster performance, again, like him this week. So we talked about our core plays, week 2 DFS. Threw in a couple of extra guys here at the end. I'm expecting big things this week. I wish you all the best of luck. As always, if you like this video, please smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with other fantasy football DFS geeks just like us. Hopefully I see a couple of you guys finishing second behind me in tournaments tomorrow. I'll see you in the next video.